Hello guys, it's me, and yes, I'm filming in the car, and no, I don't have my mic, and I should, but I'm still gonna do it because as I said, I haven't been vlogging that much, and I did want to vlog because I have a lot to talk about, honestly. So yeah, I was just thinking of doing my vlog today about my mom because it has been on my mind, and I just think about it in my head, but then I don't really talk about it, which is also not really that good. Also, I found a way to edit videos where my voice doesn't sound very weird, and I found a way to edit out all the big noise. Oh my god, what's happening here? Anyway, yeah, I found a way to edit all of it out. It takes a while, but it works. So you can only hear my voice in my edits, which is obviously great. It has been a little bit colder. I cannot go outside with short clothes anymore. The only thing I'm looking forward in the winter here in Europe is the oliebollen, because that shit's amazing, okay? Especially when it's still warm and fresh and like just made. But yeah, I'll be here for that, but then after I'll leave. So the plan for now is to leave in about, let's say, 4.5 weeks. Today I looked at tickets maybe like a little bit earlier. So, oh my god, what's happening today? I haven't been outside for 2 days, and it's kind of crazy to be on the road. Either way, I am on my way to my sister right now, to my sister's house, not to my sister, because my sister physically is in Greece. So I will not be able to visit her right now. She's coming back next week, though. I'm very excited for her to come back so we can hang out again. But let's just skip all the life updates and go straight to the topic, my mother. Let's talk about my mother, okay? Before I start talking about all of that, I do want to say, when I was younger, so I never really had a good relationship with my mom, but when I was younger, let's say like my teenage years, I had some counseling for it, and I really tried to find a way to cope with the relationship between me and my mom, which isn't great. It's very bad, if anything. And yeah, so I get distracted, guys. I try to find a coping mechanism, and I resorted to writing poems, writing about my feelings, about my relationship with my mom, about what's bothering me, about how I wish it could be better, yada, you know the whole story. I decided to do that. Very good coping mechanism. But for some reason, I tried to upload that. So one time I uploaded a poem on Facebook. Just like a little poem saying like, oh mom, why does our relationship have to be like that? I wish we could have a good, healthy one without yelling, without feelings hurt, blah. And I remember there were like 4 or 5 people that commented on that saying, you should keep like things like this private. You should not share things like this. You're gonna regret this when you're older. You only feel like this because you're a teenager. And I was like, okay, I was still a child, basically. And dumbass. Either way, I was still a child. And from Lithuania, obviously they drive like that, fucking idiot. Anyway, I was still a child. And people told me that online. So obviously I'm gonna listen to them. So I'm gonna be like, oh, I did a bad thing, I should have never shared that because I'm oversharing. There was nothing in that poem that said like drastic, anything like abusive, anything like that. I was just like expressing how I wish everything was better. How I wish she wouldn't yell at me. And people said that and I took it off. So I shared that poem, and mind you, I was literally about like 14 or 15 years old. And I took it off and I never really shared anything anymore about my whole like mom situation. So let's get back into the story, because I do regret taking it down. I do regret listening to other people, because I still feel the very same way as I felt literally 15 years ago, you know? But let's talk about how we got to this point of today. So my mom and my dad, they're divorced. So they're no longer together. And I have so much to say, guys. But let's start with the story with me and my mom. Sorry, it's already taking a long time for me to start. So I was born. I have an older sister. Sorry, I was choking. I have an older sister. She's 4 years older. And my sister was born in Europe. And I was born in the US. And that's because my dad thought that was a good idea. And I mean, it's not a bad idea. But yeah, thanks, Dad. I need to pay taxes now. Anyway, so I was born in the US. And my mom and my dad divorced. I am not quite sure exactly when they divorced. In my head, it's like, oh, they divorced somewhere after I was born. So maybe when I was like a couple of months, I'm not sure. No one really told me the exact story about the exact dates on when they divorced and yada, because there's so much hatred in both of my parents. And I really feel sorry for them, because they hate each other so much that they cannot talk about things in a normal, proper way without putting hate out there towards my other parent. And I wish they knew how much it hurts me, because I cannot imagine a world where my parents love each other, where they act maturely, you know, where they take their own actions and say, okay, I chose for this and it's my fault. Instead, they just blame each other. The one blames the other and the other blames the one. And the story is never straight. So I gave up on the idea of ever getting the straight story. Because obviously parent A is gonna tell her way of stuff, how she experienced. And then parent B is gonna tell his way, how he experienced it. And it's never gonna be the full truth, because they always tell it in their way, blaming the other person. Either way, my parents divorced. And I lost the timeline on where I went at what age. I just know I went with my mom and my sister to live in Portugal at some point. And then when I almost turned 5 years old, we moved to the Netherlands. My sister, my mom, and I. And there's like a whole history of choices that my mom made that didn't really lead to good consequences, but it did happen. And I remember from when I was younger that I had like a stepdad, and my stepdad was there, and I don't know why, but I kind of really needed a dad in my life, and my dad was not there in my life. So obviously the stepdad is gonna take in that role of me wanting to have a dad. And me and my mom, since I can remember, me and my mom, we don't click. We just don't. Ever since I was a child. And the reason for that is, okay, my mom raised us in a way where there were basically no rules. You know, she was barely there. If she was there, I only saw her for a couple of minutes before I went to sleep. So that's when I was like a child, okay? We're talking between 5 and, let's say, 12, maybe, between 5 and 12. I barely saw her, okay? When I woke up, she was already gone. When I went to bed, she wasn't home. And if she was, it was literally for a couple minutes. And so I didn't ever get to create a a bond with her, like, you know, a close connection. And also, another problem. My parents are Chinese. My mom spoke Chinese to me when we were younger. But from a certain age, I don't remember, I think I was like 9 or 10, she stopped speaking Chinese to us. There is a reason for that. I'm not gonna, you know, get too deep into that. And it was a valid reason, but not really. You know, like maybe in her circumstances, it was a valid reason. But to me, knowing what I know, what's best for my children, I would never stop speaking the mother tongue to my children. But obviously, I'm a little bit more educated than my mom is. So I also cannot really blame her for doing the things she did. And with that, I am not angry at my mom. But I am very upset. I'm upset. I'm disappointed. I never hoped for myself to have this life with this type of relationship with my mom. Either way, my mom had a really hard life. You gotta like imagine her growing up like very poor, and she rarely had education the way we have in the Western world. So she knows barely anything about the things I knew her age. So that said, I never really had a good connection with my mom when we were younger, and I never really had one, and I still don't have one. So my mom, you can imagine my mom as basically a single parent, right? And she would just go to work and then come home from work, and there was no rules. If the rules were set, it was our stepdad, and he was the most unfit parent I ever met in my whole life. So that's also very nice that she chose a person like that. Either way, so there are no rules. You're a child, there are no rules. But then if you don't listen to your mom, if she says something, she immediately resorts to yelling. And, you know, there were times that when she would yell and we wouldn't be reacting to it, that she would start hitting you. And again, I'm not angry at her. She couldn't communicate with us, basically. She didn't understand what we were saying. We didn't understand what she was saying. And in her head, we were just children that wouldn't listen to her. While in reality, we kind of knew better or something already. So it's not like we didn't want to listen. There are no boundaries. We are autonomous over ourselves since we were really, really young. And then you can't expect a child to be autonomous, having to decide everything for themselves, kind of like survive on their own, right? And then expect them to listen to you whenever you tell them to do something. It's like a stray cat that you feed every now and then when you pet them, you expect them to behave and not scratch you or bite you. It doesn't work like that. Especially with children, it doesn't work like that. So we moved a bunch of times, okay? When I say a bunch of times, I mean a bunch of times. And it wasn't fun. It wasn't fun at all because we moved so many times just because my mom made the worst decisions she could make, okay? And it really completely destroyed the childhood of me and my sister. And I can say that because I've talked about it, we've talked about it, I've thought about it, and it's true. The reason why I did have a good childhood in certain aspects wasn't because my home situation was stable, wasn't because I received all the love and attention that I needed as a child, you know? It was because of other parents stepping in. It was because I could go to my best friend's house, eat there, sleep there, being taken care of. It's because I had other people that cared about me. It was because when I went to school, my teachers were actually taking care of me, listening to me, understanding what I was saying, and providing the things that I needed in order to grow. And it wasn't enough for me when I was a child because you can like imagine I was still missing this huge thing that I really needed in order to like develop into a good person, good character, like healthy, stable. I didn't have any of the tools that I needed to develop into that when I was a child. And knowing that, I obviously didn't have a good relationship with my mom. So since I was a child, I kind of always disliked her. And I think it's also because she always did stuff without explaining. So she never explained stuff. Her reasoning was because I say so or because I'm the parent. And that would always be her reasoning. She never sat down with us. Guys, I just wanted to go away from that road. Oh, look, there's a parking spot left. That is great. So she never really explained to us why things were the way they were, why she made the decisions the way she did. And her reasoning for that was, I don't have to explain anything to anybody because I'm your mom and I'm your parent. Oops, I spat. That was her reasoning. Little does she know, the reasoning is not to justify stuff. The reasoning is not to go to your boss and say, I want to do this. Can I do this? No, the reasoning is for a child to understand why you took the steps and that you still love them and that you still want to take care of them. That's what the reasoning is for. And because there was something toxic going on in her head, she thought the reasoning was for, to get approval from her children, which is not the case, obviously. But yeah, either way, that's why she never really explained things to us. So for example, we would come home from school and our cat was gone. And never before that moment she ever said, oh, you want to discuss maybe giving the cat away. We don't have money to buy them food because we barely have money for ourselves, like none of that. We never really discussed anything like that. We just came home from school, cat was gone. So we started crying, obviously, and asking, where's the cat? And she just starts to like get annoyed and be like, the cat is gone, the cat is gone. It's just gone. We can't take care of it. And she would just snap at you and you wouldn't get any comforting, any explanation. There's no mom hugging you saying, oh, I understand. I'm so sorry that I did it without consulting you guys as well because it's you guys' cat. So obviously there's emotional attachment, which she also didn't understand. So there's just a lot of things she didn't understand. She was too busy struggling with her life, surviving, fighting, and I get it. That's why I'm not angry at her. But those things did cause me at a young age to dislike her because every time I had an encounter with her, it was just her telling me bad news. And then the reasoning was because she's the adult and I have to listen to her. And yeah, never was I really comforted for anything. And I think it really hit me when I was a teenager. So we moved again. So for high school, I had to make new friends, which is horrible, okay? And then also, I'm the minority in this country. Horrible. And then we moved to a majority white city. Horrible. Like, what are you doing, Anyway, sometimes I am not sure if I'm upset at my mom for bringing me to the Netherlands and telling me that I have to stay here. Because I am very grateful for her that she, obviously she saw that China is not the country you want to grow up in and live in. And I'm very grateful for that. And she wanted better opportunities for us. And obviously it did work out like pretty well at the end because we did our best. But whenever I mention that I want to live somewhere else or that I find it a little bit too cold here in the winter and that's the reason I'm leaving, she always gets very upset and she goes, well, you can't always decide anything in your life. And I'm like, oh, sorry, I thought I could decide things over my life now because I'm an adult. But Sorry if I'm mistaken. Either way, she finds it offensive and sees it as disrespect if I will leave this country, because she brought me here for better chances, and she always compares it to how bad China is. And again, I'm grateful that I didn't grow up in China. But then again, why can I not have my own autonomy over my choices and where I go and where I'm happy? You know, I'm happy for her that she's happy here. And I'm happy for her that she fled a country where you don't have basic human rights. But don't bother me when I say, oh, I find it a little bit cold here in the winter. It gives me winter depression. I want to leave, you know? But she's giving me a very hard time for that, which I don't appreciate. Either way, in my teenage years, I really starting to not only dislike her, but I kind of hated my mom for a little while. I can really say this because I remember being a teenager and I would come home from school and she would be there and I would just totally ignore her, basically. I would come home from school, maybe eat something, and then go to my room. And sometimes she would ask me like, how is school or how was your day? But she rarely did that. And if she did that, I was just like very upset over like all the things she had done in the past. And then a lot of times in my teenage years, we did like fight a lot about like nonsense. And she did snap at me one time where she, where we like got into a physical fight. And she still denies up until this day that that never happened, but obviously everyone was there to see it. So I know it happened. It happened a couple of times actually. And in my teenage years, I had not a good relationship with her, okay? If any relationship, it was the worst relationship you can ever imagine. I hated her. I didn't want to do anything with her. If I was outside with her, I was like embarrassed, you know. And that's what happens when you're like kind of whitewashed and you get bullied for looking Asian when you're a child, because at some point it's gonna like indoctrinate like in your brain and think something's wrong with you because you're not white and that white people are superior because they don't get bullied about like how they look, because no one ever said, oh, you're white, obviously because you're in the Netherlands. And that happens to a teenager. You think the whole world is against you, and then also that you don't belong anywhere and that your mom is the cause of everything because now you're living in a city that is majority white. You're in a high school that's majority white. You get bullied for being Asian. Obviously, like, it's not gonna work out, like, obviously. I had a really bad relationship with my mom. Bad. And then we moved again because her and her boyfriend, because she divorced somewhere like years before that, and then she got a new boyfriend after like a month or something. She decided to move into like the other side of the fucking country. Pardon my French, but that was the most horrible shit I ever had to go through. And not the most horrible, but one of the things that I really don't like. And then we all had to adjust because she found her boyfriend somewhere. So, yeah, my high school was a drama. I absolutely hated it. I was surrounded in my class by not the brightest people. And as a teenager, you get influenced very easily. So I hung out with people that were really not my people. And here and there, I had really good friends that have really good families, by the way. And they took me in, they took care of me, and that is one of the reasons why I turned out a little bit okay after everything I went through. After my teenage years, I was still at home for until I was like 19. I think I just hit 19. When I was 18, I really wanted to move out, but I still had school in that city. So I waited until I was 19. I moved out. And since I moved out, so since I'm 19, I'm 28 now, guys. Since I am 19, I tried to build a good relationship with my mom. Okay? Since I moved out, I was like, you know what? There's enough space between us right now. We can probably, you know, settle things down, start from the start, build a good relationship before she gets old, before I have kids, so we can have a good future together. And I tried every single time. I tried to gather everybody, always, for anything. I tried to have monthly or every 2 months that we see each other, all of us. I had that. I tried to do as many things with her as possible, like go on holidays, go on vacation. We went in 2017, we went on a camping trip together. And it didn't turn out good because we had a lot of fights. And honestly, from that moment in 2017, I thought, maybe it's not gonna work out. But I was like, man, like, I think if the time goes on, she's getting older, things are gonna change. Like, I was really hoping for the best. And since then, I've been trying, okay? I've been trying. She didn't really change. She kind of like stayed the same. And when I say stay the same is, I'm not saying she's the worst person or like she has malice or she's a very bad person. But I feel like she wasn't fit to be a parent because of her traumas, because of the way she handles stuff, because of her bad like coping mechanisms. Um I feel like both of my parents shouldn't have been parents, but yeah, respectfully, either way. And then my mom, she yells a lot. Okay, when I say a lot, it's a lot. She yells whenever she feels like she's not heard. She yells when she wants to let you know that she feels a type of way. She will yell if you start talking and she wants to talk. She will yell out of the blue for no reason about how her whole life is worse and more terrible than anybody's, okay? I told her you need to get into therapy. And obviously I went into therapy when I was younger. So I have literally been in therapy for years and years and years and years just to break the bad habits, just to get over the mechanisms that I had when I was a child, just so I don't turn out to be like my mom. Okay? I had therapy and I'm really happy that I did it because I turned out so much better than I can ever like hope for or wish for. And I found more peace within myself than I ever felt like in my life. So I'm very grateful for that. And then at the same time, obviously I told my mom like you need to go to therapy. And she did therapy, but she doesn't speak Dutch as well. So I was like, you need to have a Chinese therapist because, you know, you're not even going to understand the whole thing. How are you going to do trauma therapy for someone that doesn't really understand the language that much? So what did they do? They did like art exposure, like art expression therapy or something. And I was like, that's not going to help. That's literally not going to help her. She needs to talk. She needs to change her path. She needs to like realize stuff, you know? And when I say stuff, I mean 90% of the way she handles stuff. And it's so hard for someone her age to do that. And I understand. But yeah, so my whole life, I think there's only one instance where I heard a sorry from her, like a true heartfelt sorry. And that was something really sad that I'm not going to talk about on here. And any other time, she never ever showed remorse, that she's sorry, that she knows what she did was wrong, that she hurt my feelings, that she hurt my sister's feelings, that the thing she's saying is not okay. She never said sorry for that, guys. And imagine every time you see her, the first thing she says is, "Oh, you got fat." You know, me and my sister both. First thing she says is, "Oh, I feel like you don't do this well and you don't do that good and this is bad." You know, like imagine hanging out with somebody and the whole room just turns negative because of the things she says. I had a one instance where we were in Denmark, and I went on holidays with her and her husband, okay? I gave it a chance again after the whole 2017 trip because I was like, okay, we can probably try again, you know? She went crazy. She went totally crazy in Denmark. Mind you, I don't even know how old I was. Maybe I was like 20 or 21. I'm not sure anymore what year this was. Mind you, I was old, okay? I already traveled to countries in Europe by myself. I had lived months and months and months without her knowing where I was, what I was doing. And we go on holidays to Denmark, me and my stepdad, and I end up in an argument with her and I say, I'm gonna go out for a walk. And she says, no, you're not. You're not going out for a walk because I think it's unsafe. Imagine you lived years without her knowing anything, without her asking how you are, okay? And then she's gonna throw that at you. So I flip and we ended up in like a heated fucking discussion, heated argument. She put my stepdad in between everything. She's like, you're gonna go after her right now. And he's like, I think she's fine. And then my mom is like, well, you're fucking stupid for thinking that. Anyway, that happened. After that happened, I sat down with my mom. I said, I'm going home, first of all. I'm gonna buy my flight ticket back to the Netherlands. You go enjoy your holidays with your husband. This is the last holidays I'm gonna do with you. And I don't love you less, but I do want to talk to you about something, because if this is the way we're gonna treat each other in the future, I'd rather not have contact with you. And it was in the period where I had a lot of therapy. So I was healing from a lot of stuff. And I told her there's no way I'm gonna let her shit make my progress disappear. Okay? I gave her a heart limit there. I said, if you're not gonna change, I won't see you again. And the reason for that is because I want peace in my life. This is my life. You gave me my life. I'm grateful for that. But just because you're blood doesn't mean I should have a shorter lifespan because I'm so stressed because of everything you do and you say, right? She broke down and she said a bunch of shit that is also not acceptable. But she broke down basically. After that, she said a bunch of unhinged stuff. And then she was like, okay, I'll do my best to change. I'll do my best. And she actually did try her best. I'm going to give her that. She did try her best. She, whenever we were together, she would try to be more positive. The negativity was still there, though. She would still say like, oh, you look fat and you need to lose weight and your legs are too fat and you look like a man and blah. And then at the same time, you were noticing that she was trying to change because she would be like, oh, you're so beautiful. Like, you're my beautiful daughter. And it was like a bit bipolar sometimes with her. But I would say she really gave it a good shot because throughout the year, she really tried to keep saying positive stuff. And every time that would happen and we would have a good connection together and she wouldn't bring up negative stuff, we would build a little like brick on top of our like connection, like it would like slowly build the big strong base that we needed to have a good connection. And she really did that. And of course, every now and then we had arguments. We had arguments about this and about that and small stuff. The one thing that did stay was every single time there was too much silence or space, she would take it and immediately go to, your dad this, your dad that, your dad, he is everything that's bad. And I was like, damn, did the therapy even help? Because I don't think it did. And so that held on And obviously, my sister she's 4 years older. She doesn't really care anymore about building up the connection, like, wasting her time, because I think she somewhere knew that it wasn't going to work out either way. So for her, it was just good as it is. Like, I see you a couple times a year for a couple of hours and we're fine. And we talk every now and then. And if you ask me anything, I will send you pictures and tell you about it. And I really wanted that stronger connection between mother and child, because I feel like I never had that. And I really wanted it because I really think we deserve it. I think we deserve to have a good relationship with one of our parents, and being able to go to them, being able to talk about stuff, being able to ask for advice. But I still, unfortunately, cannot do that with my mom up until this day. And then also something else happened, guys. 2 days ago, 3 days ago, actually now. Today it's Sunday, October 5th. 3 days ago on a Thursday. I just came back last week, exactly 7 days ago. And I came back and my mom was like, "Oh, when can we see each other again?" My sister's on holidays, okay? She left the day I came back. No, she left one day after I came back, actually. So either we would have to wait 2 weeks for my sister to be back, or I can just try to hang out with her, which is fine. I thought that was fine. And I was like, "Oh, can you and your husband hang out with me on this and this day? We can do that." And then she's like, "Oh, we cannot. Like, my husband, he has to go to his mom and take care of some stuff." And I was like, "Okay, you know what? Mom, you can come to our city and then we can have a sleepover." Like, how fun is that? How great is that, I have been wanting a sleepover with her for about a year now. Just because I noticed she's getting old. Just because I noticed that she won't have that much time left. 20 years in her right mindset. And I'm like, okay, she won't be here forever. I just realized it, like a couple years ago. And I was like, okay, I need to spend more time with her. And I really tried, guys. And I was like, I'm willing to take a step further to invite her for a sleepover so we can have one-on-one time, so we can build that mother-daughter relationship. It did not end well, guys. I picked her up after my work, and immediately when she saw me, initially it was fine. Like, I picked her up and she was like, "Okay, how are you doing? How have you been doing? How was holidays and stuff?" We talk about small stuff. And then once she got into my house, she immediately started to complain. It was like this negative bubble that came over her. And it was like, "Oh, your room is dirty. You have your hair on the floor." Did you see my hair? Do you see how thick that is? Of course there's gonna be hair. There's always gonna be hair. Even if I vacuum every day, there's gonna be hair. If I don't want there to be hair, I gotta vacuum 5 times a day. Okay? Respectfully, my hair is everywhere. My hair is always everywhere because I have long, strong, thick, dark hair. Anyway, she started to complain about everything. And then from het een komt het ander, which is she started to talk about my dad. She started to talk about the past. And that's something you kind of want to avoid with her, because once she starts yapping about that, it's going to turn bad. The whole room is going to be negative. And she starts to talk about it. And she's like, "Your dad this, he did that, and he ruined everything, and the other person ruined everything." And I'm just sitting there and I'm like, okay, I hear you. You already told me everything about the past a long time ago. You told me that every single time we see each other. You complain about the same stuff every time we see each other. You bring negativity into the conversation every time we see each other. I asked her friendly Normal tone. I wasn't mad. I wasn't even upset back then. I said, hey, mom, I about you very much. And I'm sorry things happened in the past, but I would like to move forward, have a good time with you, have a good future with you. We won't have forever together, you know? I don't want to waste my time sitting here being bitter about the that we can't do anything about anymore. And she just freaks out, you know? She's like, no, they ruined everything. And she just started like yelling. And I tell her, you don't have to yell. I am pretty sensitive when it comes to yelling. No one really has to do that to me. Because it depends who you are. Shit's gonna go down if you start yelling at me. But because it's my mom, I don't want to like physically do something to her. So it's gonna hurt me, you know? So I asked her, can we please not yell? I hear you. And can we also please move on from like that topic, because it's nothing but, negativity into a lot of stuff. And she just kept going. And she said like some unhinged stuff, like, yeah, you tried to live like that, and I was like, damn, like there's so much hate in you. And I didn't even cause any of that, because nowhere in that conversation I went, oh, it's not that bad. Or, can you just stop talking about it? I was like, I understand, but I would really want to have a good time with you right now. I planned out everything. We were going to do a puzzle in the evening. We were going to do pumpkin picking the next day. We were going to do pumpkin carving. We were going to watch a movie. Like, we were gonna have a lot of fun. And then this happens, and it kept going and going. And she doesn't really stop until everything is out of her system. But sometimes it takes hours, okay? She will like yell at you for hours. And to me, it's just like mental abuse, kind of, because I'm not too good with yelling. So if you ever want to say something to me and you start yelling, I'm not even listening anymore, kind of. Plus, you triggered me, like I'm either gonna fight you or I'm gonna shut down to the point where I'm not gonna talk to you anymore. So yelling is really a no-go for me. And she knows that, because since I was little, whenever she would yell, I would start crying, or I would say, Mom, don't yell at me, and then cry. So she knows, she just doesn't give a fuck. And I told her at some point, you know what, Mom, I think it's a good idea if I drop you off back at home. She lives almost an hour and a half away from me. And then I called my stepdad and I said, well, is there a chance you can pick her up? Because, if I'm going to drop her off, I'm probably going to have to put in a headset because she's going to yell at me probably for an hour and a half. And I told him, I don't mind. I'm willing to do that in order for her to get home safe, because I care about her. And he's like, no, don't worry about it. I'll come pick her up. And my mom just freaked out. She was like, you're so disrespectful towards me. You think you can just get rid of me like that? You treat me like a child. You think you have any say over me? You don't even know what it's like to have a mom. You don't respect your mom. You don't even know what it's like when you don't have a mom anymore. And I was like, just because I have boundaries, sorry, doesn't mean that I am disrespecting you. So when she started to shifting her anger towards me, I said, okay, I'm gonna just leave this space. You're gonna sit here or do whatever you want. I'm gonna leave this space and we're gonna wait until my stepdad is here to pick you up. And I left the space and I really started crying because I was very upset over everything. I tried to be calm with her the whole time. At the end, it was really hard to be calm with her because I was on the verge of crying. And while I was waiting, like after 30 minutes, she tried calling me and I was like, no, don't call me, please. Let's just wait till my stepdad is here. And then she texted me and she's like, well, why don't you just want to talk? And I told her I don't want to talk anymore because of how things go all the time. And she's like, well, you never want to talk. Since you were a child, you never wanted to talk. You got problems and therapy didn't help for you. You know? So, like, she really says mean things when she's hurt. And I no longer accept that because I've always said, oh, it's not my mom's fault. She's hurt. She had traumatic life. She, has issues. Her life wasn't easy. I always tried to play it to where I'm justifying her behavior. But after trying for almost 10 years, I think I'm done doing that. And I'm not saying I hate her because I don't. I absolutely love my mom. And I wish she could be better, but I guess she just cannot heal from, whatever happened to her. I hope in another lifetime, she can be happy and peaceful. But for now, I'm still gonna see her. I'm still willing to celebrate birthdays with her. I'm still willing to see her every now and then for a couple of hours when I'm with my sister and my stepdad. I am not seeing her alone anymore. What I thought was progress was kind of like false progress because it was just little pieces that I would see from her. And I think that like experience is kind of what I needed to come to the conclusion that I tried. I gave such a good try, guys, the past like 9 years. And I'm really proud of myself for doing that. But it's no longer my burden to carry. And yeah, like I kind of like gave up. I guess like I'm never gonna have a better relationship with her. It is what it is. She's still my mom. I still care about her. I still love her, but I won't ever be one-on-one with her again. I will not invite her to my house if I don't have to, just to avoid certain tensions, So, yeah, that's really it, guys. I am sad that it kind of ends like this, but also it gives me strength and like motivation and power to do better. And I think that's really a life goal for me now. Becoming a mom that's everything that she couldn't be for me. Because I build a good relationship, because I build good habits, stay intelligent, read into stuff, be, a vulnerable, emotionally open parent, and give my child all the love, all the attention that it needs to grow. Give my child the support, be present in my child's life. I think that's my main goal in life, guys. It's not necessarily to prove my mom wrong. I think it's more that I kind of do it for not her, but it's for me. But I hope she's going to be proud of me. I mean, she won't ever tell me, oh, I'm so proud of you, but I hope if there's a heaven and she can look down from there, that all her bitterness will disappear. And from heaven, she could look down, see my life that I build, see the mom I became, and be proud of me, That I could become the mom for my kids that I needed when I was a child. And that she couldn't give to me, not because she didn't want to, okay? But because she wasn't capable, because of her past, because of the time she grew in, and because of the generation, because they didn't care about mental health back then. She went through a lot, I'm really proud of her for still standing strong. I just think she was very unfit to be a parent, having all those troubles and issues. But I'm very proud of me and my sister that we picked ourselves up where she left it, and that we are, just incredible human beings doing our thing, be happy. And I think that's all what matters, guys. Either way, it's not the ending that I wish it would be, but maybe it's the ending that like I needed, you know? Either way, thanks for listening, guys. This was the vlog about my mom and I. And yeah, if your mom is still here, if your mom cares about you, if your mom is trying and you get annoyed at her, that's okay, but don't go to sleep angry. Don't say bye angry. Don't end things on an angry note. And make sure to love your mom. She did carry you for 9 months. But make sure you have your own boundaries. Okay? All right. Bye, guys.